After a long, grueling deployment in Afghanistan, I dreamed of nothing but wrapping my arms around my girlfriend. But when I stepped through the arrival gates, the emptiness hit me first. She wasn't there. The joy of coming home quickly turned into a knot of anxiety. I ordered a cab to our apartment, and when I walked in, I was greeted by the sound of Emily sobbing in the bathroom. I knocked on the door, and after what felt like an eternity, she opened it. She stood there, tears streaming down her face, holding a positive pregnancy test. My heart dropped to a place it had never been before. The first words I managed to choke out were, "How far along?" "1 month," she whispered, guilt heavy in her voice. It felt like a punch to the gut. Just a month ago, I had been in Kabul, fighting for my life, haunted by the faces of my fallen brothers. The only thing that kept me going was the thought of Emily, her voice, her smile, and the hope of our future together. But while I was fighting to survive, she was with another man. I asked who the father was. She hesitated, then whispered a name I didn't recognize. Rage surged through me. I yelled, my voice echoing off the walls. How could the woman who talked about spending our lives together betray me like this? The thought of her with someone else made my blood boil. I stormed out of the bathroom, slamming the door so hard it cracked down the middle. Emily screamed in fear. I didn't care. I was a hurricane of anger and pain. I flipped the coffee table, shattering the glass on the floor, and punched a hole in the TV. My hands bled, but I didn't feel the pain. I only felt the rage. Realizing the destruction I was capable of, I knew I had to leave before I hurt her, or myself, any further. The next day, I returned to find the apartment empty except for a note from Emily. She wrote that she was leaving because she feared for her life. As much as it hurt, I understood. I would never have physically hurt her, but the rage she saw in me was something no one should witness. Emily had been my rock, the one who helped me through the darkest times of my life. When I lost my family in a tragic car accident, she was there, piecing my shattered heart back together. We had been through so much together ever since we were 18, and I never imagined it would end like this. We had planned our future together. I joined the military to provide for us, selling everything I had to build a life. And now it was all gone, scattered to the wind because she chose to betray our love. The realization of her betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound I had ever endured. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself spiraling. I drowned my sorrows in alcohol, losing control over my life. The PTSD I had fought so hard to manage took over. Emily had been my anchor, and without her, I was adrift in a sea of despair. It was David, my best friend and fellow soldier, who found me in a bar one night. He didn't judge or lecture me. He simply hauled me to his place and stayed by my side as I fought through the darkness. With David's support, I slowly began to piece my life back together. It wasn't easy. Every day was a battle against the cravings, the pain, and the nightmares. But I found a glimmer of hope in the routine, in the small victories. Months later, I was at the mall when I saw her, Emily. She was standing outside a baby clothing store, holding hands with a man I assumed was the father of her child. The sight of her hit me like a punch to the gut. She looked terrible, a shadow of the vibrant woman I had loved. Her hair hung limp around her face, her eyes hollow, her clothes loose on her frail frame. The man beside her looked impatient, his grip on her hand possessive. For a moment, our eyes met. I saw a flicker of recognition and then a silent plea in her eyes. But she quickly looked away, tightening her grip on the man's hand. As they disappeared into the crowd, I felt a surge of anger and sadness. She wasn't happy. She was suffering just as much as I had. That night, as I went for a run to clear my head, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Emily. She apologized for everything, saying she regretted cheating on me and wished she hadn't married the man. She asked if we could meet, and despite everything, I agreed. When we met at a quiet cafe, Emily broke down, telling me how miserable her life had become. She had thought she was doing the right thing by not forcing me to be the father of someone else's child. But she ended up trapped in a nightmare. She had been my world, and seeing her like this broke my heart all over again. I decided to take care of it, promising her she wouldn't have to suffer anymore. She asked if we could get back together, but I said no. The only reason I agreed to help her was that I wanted to prove to her that I still loved her and that the loyalty we had over the years hadn't died. So I did some digging. I spent hours on social media, piecing together fragments of information from Emily's posts and comments. The man, Jason, wasn't hard to find. He had a routine and habits that were easy to trace once you knew what to look for. Public check-ins at the gym, photos tagged at his favorite bar, and even a few work-related posts gave me a roadmap of his daily life. One evening, I parked my car a few blocks away from their house. The engine ticked quietly as it cooled. I felt a familiar tension work its way into my muscles. It was the same feeling I'd had on missions, a heightened awareness that sharpened my senses. I watched their house from a distance, noting the comings and goings, the lights flicking on and off. Jason left the house around 8 p.m., heading to the gym as he did every Tuesday. I followed at a safe distance, my heart pounding in my chest. The darkness hid me. He was a creature of habit, sticking to the same route and parking in the same spot. I observed him from my car, hidden in the shadows, as he walked into the gym. The gym was a 24-hour place, and it wasn't unusual for people to come and go at all hours. I waited, the minutes stretching into what felt like hours, until he finally came out. He was sweat-soaked and carrying a gym bag. He didn't notice me as he walked to his car. I felt a rush of adrenaline. I knew this was it. As soon as I was going to confront Jason, a man who seemed to recognize him showed up, and they started talking. I knew I couldn't approach him now because it would be too risky, so I waited in my car until they were done, but before I could get to him, he was in his car. The bar was his next stop. I followed him there, parking across the street and watching as he went inside. The neon lights flickered, casting a sickly glow on the pavement. I waited, knowing that alcohol would make him an easier target. Hours passed, and the bar began to empty. It was close to closing time when Jason finally stumbled out, his steps unsteady and his demeanor was aggressive. I stepped out of my car. I felt my pulse in my throat. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I shadowed him as he made his way to his car, walking as quietly as possible. He didn't see me coming. I confronted him in the alley behind the bar, where no one could see us. I let out years of frustration in that moment. When it was over, I walked away, leaving him to deal with the consequences of his actions. I left that bar feeling accomplished. I was proud of myself, knowing that guy wouldn't be putting his hands on Emily ever again. Emily never contacted me again after that, and I didn't seek her out. I'd done what I could for her, and that was enough. I found a strange peace in knowing that the last thing I did for her was protect her, even if it wasn't the kind of protection I'd once dreamed of offering. Life went on. I focused on my recovery, leaning on David and the support system I'd built. The nightmares never completely went away, and the pain of losing Emily was a constant ache, but I learned to live with it. I found new things to live for and new goals to strive towards. One day, as I was walking through the park, I saw a couple playing with their young child. They were laughing. They seemed like the perfect family. I felt a sense of sadness, but also a bit of hope. Maybe someday I'd find that kind of happiness again. For now, I was content with the knowledge that I'd survived. I'd been to hell and back, but I was still standing, and that was enough. Commentary time. Wow. This is one of those stories that really hits hard. OP, who endured so much on deployment, came home only to find betrayal waiting for him. His heartbreak is deeply personal, layered with the trauma of war and the betrayal by someone he trusted most. Emily's actions must have shattered him, especially after he risked everything for their future. And yet, even through his pain, OP's response shows incredible resilience. The fact that he managed to rebuild his life with the support of his friend David says a lot about the importance of a support system. In the aftermath of betrayal, true friends like David remind us that we can rely on others and eventually find healing. OP's choice to help Emily, despite everything, shows he still held onto a sense of loyalty. And the confrontation with Jason was his way of reclaiming some control over the chaos. By the end, OP's journey towards peace and self-acceptance is an inspiring message. He's no longer consumed by the betrayal or his pain, but instead is focused on finding new purpose and joy. This story highlights the challenges veterans often face when coming home, and the power of inner strength and friendship in the healing process. Thank you for being here to listen to this powerful story. Don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts, subscribe for more stories, and remember to like this video if you found it as compelling as I did. See you next time.